Welcome to another episode of Steelers Now Postgame. I'm Alan Saunders. Matt Gajtka back with us for another late night edition, significantly less late night than the last one of these we did after that rain-delayed Dallas game. And he gets to do a Steelers victory this time as well, as the Pittsburgh Steelers 28-16 winners over the New York Giants. So much to talk about when it comes to this one. But just very quickly, big picture here. The Pittsburgh Steelers are 6-2 headed into their bye week. They have a bunch of guys that are looking to get healthy. Offense has back-to-back 400-yard games. Najee Harris has 3 straight 100-yard games. Even the wide receiver 2 and 3 that we talk about ad nauseum needing to be replaced, Calvin Austin basically won the Steelers the game in this one. What are people going to find something to be upset about from this one, Matt? What are we going to have to deal? There will be something, I know, but there should be pretty good feelings in Steelers Nation right now, considering where the team is at this point in the season.
Yeah, there should be, although with the bye week coming up, I wouldn't underestimate the ability to dig something up. There's plenty of time to find something to certainly nitpick. But last time we spoke was 3 weeks ago, coming off the dramatic loss to the Cowboys on Sunday night. And, well, as you alluded to, that went deep into the night. About 2 a.m. we went on the air. But I was cautiously optimistic after that game, partially because I thought that they were about to make the quarterback switch, and I was optimistic about Wilson's ability to maybe take this offense to another level if he could play up to his ability and he wasn't still battling the calf injury. And then they go out there, they take care of Las Vegas, and then Mike Tomlin makes a pretty gutsy move. And it could be my favorite move that he's made in all his years of coaching the Steelers because it was very progressive. It took a risk. It wasn't risk-averse by any means to go to Russell Wilson. And I know the defense is going to be disappointed they let the Giants back into this one tonight. But overall, as far as the long-term prospects of the Steelers, the last 2 weeks have been outstanding all around.
Yeah, Matt. Give yourself a little, because you and we talked about this after the Cowboys game and said, hey, I think at some point they need to go to Russell Wilson. They need to have a more balanced offense. They need to have a more dynamic passing attack, not just to get through the regular season, but to feel like a team that can win in the postseason. And I'm not trying to dress up this win into something that it wasn't. They didn't play all that well in a win over a pretty bad New York Giants team. But I think we've seen that this offense has been so much better in terms of passing, in terms of overall production. And I still think there's more left. There's more to get to. Like they still have not been perfect by any stretch of the imagination. 4 Chris Boswell field goals from inside the 20-yard line in this game. There's a ton of meat left on the bone there. This easily could have been a blowout if the offense had been just a little bit more effective. And I know the defense needs to own some of the reason that it was not as well. But if you think about this game, I mean, a random penalty, George Pickens' left foot supposedly defying the laws of physics somehow. I don't know how it didn't touch the ground. This very easily could have been a route and probably should have been a route. But I just think you can see this offense becoming dynamic in a way that I don't remember seeing since Ben Roethlisberger was running it.
Right, and when the Steelers were winning earlier this season, they were getting the absolute most out of the underlying production, if you will. And you said the Steelers' offense was effective, but they weren't efficient today. However, you'd rather have all these little building blocks underneath the surface. And like you said, they were a play here, a play there away from putting up 40, 45 points today. The Van Jefferson, maybe a misread of what he should have done against the zone. Also, what Russell throws behind him, that was another near miss that perhaps can get rectified with a little more practice time with those two guys working together more often. So there's meat on the bone. They're in the terms of tonight. Last week was really good because they put some points on the board and actually ran away with a game. We hadn't seen that in a long time. But tonight, for me, it still does not take anything away from my long-term optimism because they're moving the football. They're getting down inside the red zone. I think actually both teams today were a combined 0 for 7 in the red zone, kind of a crazy one when it came to converting touchdowns. But they get a long touchdown pass. They get some big chunk plays. So the building blocks are there on the offensive side, and that's the side we were all concerned about and all pretty pessimistic about for the first quarter of the season, even though they were scratching out the wins. So to see them win and at the same time show promise for more, that's all you can ask for halfway through the season, or almost halfway through the season, I think.
I agree, and I think this was a rare bad game for the Steelers defense. You only give up 18 points and you don't say, oh, that's a disaster, but this is a Giants team that had given up 10 in the previous 2 weeks combined. I understand they got Malik Neighbors back, and he's a dynamic playmaker, even though he's only a rookie, but I felt like the Steelers defense made this a lot harder than it needed to be with the way they let the Giants run the ball, especially. I didn't think Daniel Jones did much more than just heave it up and say Darius Slayton is down there somewhere for most of the game, but it was the running game that to me was really eye-opening. We haven't seen the Steelers defense attack that way. I talked to a Landon Roberts after the game. Unhappy is the kindest way I can say E-Rob's reaction to my question about Tyrone Tracy and the Giants running game. That's an angry man when it comes to the amount of pride he takes in the Steelers running defense, and it was beaten up a bit tonight. I think that's something that they're going to spend a lot of time on this off week coming up, because that can't continue.
Right. The most disappointing part for the Steelers D has to be that long touchdown run they gave up to Tracy. Multiple tackles missed, and there were tackles missed all over the field against Tracy tonight. But right there where they could have really just put the stopper on it and made it elementary after the touchdown pass to Austin, it should have been over. It could have easily been over, but Tracy ran hard, and the Steelers didn't match that. When you're talking about intensity, when you're talking about fundamentals of tackling, when you're talking about gap integrity too. So there were some issues there all night long. Tracy averaged actually over 7 yards a carry. So that's pretty scary stuff. You get gashed in that way. And it actually harkened back to the game against the Cowboys too, where they were giving up quite a few plays on the ground. But guess what? Your superhero, TJ Watt, comes through. I swear the guy just dials up strip sacks. I don't know how he does it. It's remarkable. It's like he calls his shot, or he might as well be doing it, because you know what he's trying to do, and he does it. And he got the one-on-one matchup there as the Giants were trying to get some receivers out to make some plays.
And as Illuminor had asked for this week, Giants right tackle, Jermaine Illuminor said he wanted it. He got it.
He sure did. And you're not even surprised, but at the same time, the Steelers have to be very appreciative that they have number 90 in their employ, because, again, he almost wins the game on his own. The Steelers then can't move the ball after that, and they have to get another turnover at the end from Beanie Bishop. Terrible decision from Daniel Jones. So in the end, it works out, and some things to clean up on the defensive side, certainly.
It's really something, though, to say that this defense got 2 turnovers in the last 4 minutes of a one-score game to essentially seal the victory, and this might have been their worst game of the year. And they only give up 1 touchdown. But it's true. It still might have been their worst game of the year. Anything else you want to touch on before we get to some questions here? They are piling up in the comments.
Najee Harris, 3 straight 100-yard rushing games, and I think maybe I was guilty of writing him off, not as a bust, but just not worthy of the draft pick the Steelers spent on him. And I made a comment on Twitter X tonight that Najee's not the kind of guy who's going to make something from nothing. And I was somewhat corrected on that, because he does have pretty good yards after contact stats. But for me, it's not the guy I saw at Alabama, right? It's not the guy that we saw. Well, we saw the Najee hurdle tonight, when he's feeling it, when he's feeling himself, when he doesn't actually get hit at the line of scrimmage every single time he touches the ball. He looks like a beyond competent NFL running back. So we knew that the offensive line wasn't giving him the holes for much of his Steelers tenure, but I think now that we're starting to see that click here, we're starting to see the passing game as well, making opposing defenses be more honest. We are seeing the potential of Najee Harris, and I'm happy for him, because he has seemed mostly frustrated and disgruntled over his Steelers career. Every time I see him in front of a microphone, he's mad about something. So he does get his breakthrough in these last 3 weeks, and for me, that's super important as well.
Yeah, I think the thing with Najee's yards after contact is, what's the contact? Is it a defensive lineman that he doesn't expect to be there in his face 1 yard behind the line of scrimmage? Or are they getting him on a safety who then he dribbles like a basketball and runs for another 15 yards? Because that contact they're absolutely looking for, and I think they got a lot of that tonight.
Yeah, exactly. He's a momentum type back. I don't think he has the quickest of quick twitch in his legs, but once he does get it going, excuse me, he is a bowling ball, and he still has that athleticism that he can put to use. And I think he reads blocks fairly well when he has a chance. It's just he's not going to be the guy who's going to do the spectacular thing when he doesn't get any help. There's not a lot of Barry Sanders in him, but I think we knew that coming out of school. But this just hammers home to me how much of a team game the run game is and how you can't judge a running back until you see him actually get decent blocking. And we are finally seeing that with Harris.
Of course, that is the argument for why you don't use a first-round pick on a running back, because you need the offensive line in front of them for it to work. Let's go to the first comment was on Najee Harris. Garrett says, it's kind of like the Raiders game. Why didn't Najee run like 30 times in this game? I actually thought this was going to be a better matchup for Jaylen Warren. The Giants so stout up the middle. Dexter Lawrence is having an impressive season. I know he's banged up this week, but that dude is just a play wrecker in the middle of the field. I'm surprised the Steelers had as much success running up the middle as they did. I really thought they would try to hit the edges a little bit harder. And so I kind of understand why Harris didn't have as many carries. Also, the offense just got down the field so fast that they didn't have very many plays. Like, they were getting to the red zone in 6 or 7 plays. There just wasn't time to give him 30 carries, but then they would have to kick a field goal because random things kept happening. And so, yeah, I don't have too much of a quibble with the play call in terms of forcing the ball to Najee Harris.
Right. You have to take what the game gives you, and the Steelers were getting some chunk yardage, and they were moving it well. They were getting some big runs from Harris himself. So when you're doing that, you aren't going to have all these opportunities on second and medium, third and short to really show off your feature back. So, I'm with you. It's a very context-heavy analysis when it comes to especially individual games in football. I have a hard time saying you need to force this or force that or try to dictate terms in this way or that way when maybe the matchup isn't quite there, or maybe, like you were saying, you're too successful for your own good if you're talking about just feeding a guy over and over again.
I think Jordan makes a good point about the Steelers' offense, and what it struggled with was mostly self-inflicted. Broderick Jones with a completely unnecessary face mask penalty. Van Jefferson, not on the same page with Russell Wilson in the end zone. It looked like Van probably didn't make the right read. George Pickens will probably tell you that's a play where he should get that other foot down. And then all of a sudden, this is a 30. Not necessarily self-inflicted, but just random. Dan Moore not in the game. Calvin Anderson gives up a sack on third down, because Moore has to come out for one play. I just think this offense was so close to so many good things. Here's an interesting storyline coming out of this one. Does Darius Slayton look at this team and say, I can make this a Super Bowl team? I'll tell you what, if Darius Slayton was in black and gold, this game would have been a bloodbath. Maybe it should have been and it could have been anyway. But I do wonder if Darius Slayton or someone will be joining the Pittsburgh Steelers, or does the fact that this was a pretty good game, season high from Van Jefferson, 2 touchdowns from Calvin Austin, we probably haven't talked enough about him yet. Does the performance from wide receiver 2 and 3 make such an acquisition not so critical in your mind, or should the Steelers absolutely be pulling aside Joe Schoen here before he leaves the building and says, hey, let me talk to you about 86?
I think it's the latter, because I just feel like this defense keeps them a championship contender if they can upgrade the offense just a little bit more. And I don't know if they're quite there. Maybe they do get there with Wilson clicking with some of these guys, but it's still a very threadbare wide receiver room. And it would be difficult. It'd be quite difficult to make a deep postseason run with the talent you have at receiver. And it's just, that's the way it is. And I know that you can get by, and the Steelers certainly do have depth at other positions. They have depth on the other side of the football, most definitely. And I just feel like you never quite know how long you're going to have that game-breaking ability on defense that can win you games on your own and can propel a deep run. So I'd lean more toward aggression when it comes to a potential move before the deadline here, running out of time. And look, it's a pretty good sales job on the Steelers side of it if you can talk to the other team that you just played and maybe convince one of their players that a move would be prudent for them. So for me, I would just lean on the aggressive side just because of what I said. You don't know how long you're going to have a TJ Watt, Alex Highsmith, these types of guys flying around on the defensive side that can push you over the top. So as far as I'm concerned, this doesn't mean you lay off the gas pedal. This means maybe we can be one of the best teams in the AFC. And so you have to pursue that when you have the opportunity.
Yeah, I think so too. Even if Calvin Austin can continue to make big plays, even if Van Jefferson can ramp up his productivity to what we've seen these last 2 weeks, it's still not a very deep room. And what happens if something happens to George Pickens? It just, you saw how difficult it was for them to move the ball downfield without, trying to throw deep to Scotty Miller. Like the one catch Van made, very difficult because he's not getting separation, and he's not going to. There's just not enough to this wide receiver room to be able to survive a George Pickens injury. I think if they have the ability to use a mid-round pick to shore up that position, they absolutely need to. I think Slayton is a fantastic choice, probably one of the best ones that could be available. I haven't read that he is available. Jacoby Myers from the Raiders is another guy that I like a lot. Again, sort of speculative about him being available, not something that's been firmly reported. But I absolutely think they need to find a way to go make some kind of move to add to this receiver room. Set this team up. Give them the best chance. We've known since Deontay Johnson was traded in March that this group of wide receivers was not good enough. I think it's on Omar Khan to fix it. For guys like Cam Hayward and TJ Watt, you don't know how long you're going to have a defense that's good. Those guys deserve a chance to try to win a Super Bowl. And I think they're in first place in the division. The Browns and the Bengals do not look as daunting as they have been. They've always had the Ravens number. It's just looking like a year the Steelers should be pushing some chips in. I'm not saying all of them, but I think a mid-round pick is very appropriate for the position they're in. Couple questions here about the tight end usage and not so much Pat Freiermuth in this one. I've been a little surprised by not seeing more from Freiermuth, and he had the 2 big plays last week and very little today. What do you make of 88's participation in this offense?
It's weird, right? Because every catch that Darnell Washington makes, well, first of all, I am impressed by the ability of this guy to move around at that size. It's really something to watch, and he is finding a way to get open, to make plays, and get the comfort of the Steelers' 2 quarterbacks. But I have felt like as well that Freiermuth is taking a subordinate role here. I'm not sure if that's by scheme, by design, or it's just happening that way. But it is odd, and it feels like a bit of a waste considering what we've seen from him at times. When he is targeted, when he is featured, he can come through for you too. And especially on a team with very limited receiving options, you'd also think both tight ends would be utilized a little bit more, but especially the guy with the track record in Freiermuth. So it's been a very interesting development. Again, you look at individual games and game plans, it can vary even over an 8-game sample. You can have some weirdness there and some randomness that creeps in and maybe keeps a player down artificially compared to how often they actually are getting open or what have you. So I'd still like to see it play out over the course of the year. If we get to the end of the year and his numbers are on pace for what they're looking like right now, then I would certainly question the strategy. But as of right now, and particularly with how the last 2 weeks have gone, I have a hard time getting that worked up about it at the moment.
I'm not going to quibble with the way the team moved the ball up and down the field, but I don't think they had a red zone target for a tight end today, and they went 0 for 4
so there you
touchdowns. Yeah. And so I think that's certainly an area where if you're looking for more from Pat Freiermuth, more from Darnell Washington, I think that's where it's got to come from. But those guys have to separate as well. I didn't see, on those red zone plays, other than the one that got called back, a ton of guys wide open. I thought it was mostly pretty well covered. I do think the Steelers have lost something in the transition from Justin Fields to Russell Wilson in that red zone. Fields with 5 rushing touchdowns. It would not surprise me. And here's a question, James Smith, what's the biggest thing this team can take away heading into their bye? I think they've got to find a way to get Justin Fields into the game, use his athleticism, and the red zone, to me, is the area to do it. I think if they get inside the 5-yard line, I would be putting number 2 out there. Now, he missed tonight's game with a hamstring injury. It doesn't seem like it's anything major. He was out there running around before the game. Get him back healthy, and I think they got to find a way to use Justin Fields. Give him a different look, even if they don't do it every time they get down there. put in a package of plays, give him a different look. He was so successful in the red zone when he was a starting quarterback. Find a way to use them all.
Right. The biggest plays he made this year were those touchdown runs, and I call them courageous runs, where he takes on defenders. And, well, that's the one area that I would certainly tick for Russell Wilson when it comes to negatives is movement still doesn't look great. And, of course, the fumble when he's trying to scramble. He also had the slide when he probably could have picked up a few more yards. So he looks really rusty when he gets out of the pocket. And maybe rusty's not the right word. Maybe he's still a little bit gimpy as well. And also on the back nine of his career, too. So a lot of things going against him there. So if you have a guy like Fields who can complement him when healthy. So the bye comes at a perfect time for that. You can let him rest up, and maybe on the backside of it, as you prepare for the Washington Commanders, going to be a tough game on the road. You throw in a little sub package there, and you can maximize the talent you have on the roster, because Fields was doing it, and he has a really good read and react game when it gets down in those tight quarters. It's impressive to watch, and it's a pretty rare talent. So why not find a way to use it?
Absolutely. Here's another thing that can happen over the bye week, or is going to happen over the bye week. Cam Sutton is going to be reinstated. Actually, it's 12:38 a.m. Cam Sutton has been reinstated by the NFL from his 8-game suspension. He'll be back on the 53-man roster today, and will be playing in the next game. What does that mean for Beanie Bishop, the man with 3 interceptions in the last 2 games, including the game sealer tonight? I think they've got to find a way to keep Beanie in the roster. There have been some matchups that I haven't liked just because of his size. I think you can tailor it and fit it, but I think they got to find a way to keep playing Beanie Bishop. I don't think they're just going to go straight to Cam Sutton taking all of his reps going forward. Probably also will be a rust factor for Sutton. He didn't even play very much slot corner in training camp because they were trying to get Beanie ready, knowing that Sutton would be suspended. So it might take him a couple weeks to get ramped up. I think we're still going to see a good bit of Beanie going forward.
Well, especially in the near term. He's starting to make some plays, and today's interception might have been more of a gift, but at the same time, he does make the play, and he's not getting burned as obviously as we saw a few games back. So he's picking up the NFL game. He's starting to get up to speed, and he hasn't been coddled either. Mike Tomlin's even said that at times the game has gotten a little fast for him. I do recall a couple of weeks ago. So they're not going to certainly give him the pole position for staying on the field once Cam Sutton gets back, I don't think. But, you'll see a mix here. And it's not like the defense, not like the secondary is playing absolutely airtight and can't improve. So, that's one thing I did forget about. I forgot that Cam Sutton was even eligible to play this year. So he slips through the cracks in terms of what I was projecting for this defense. And, injuries are going to pop up too. So the more the merrier when it comes to that sort of thing.
Couple questions here with maybe a theme or maybe an unintended theme. Corliss Waitman had a good game too. 53-yard punt, really flipped the field very nicely there. Thank God for Chris Boswell, on pace to set the NFL record for most field goals in a season. And how about Danny Smith? I mean, the Steelers' special teams have been an incredible weapon this year. I know Danny is a guy who's been here a long time. I think the longevity breeds frustration sometimes. I've always known the guy's a good special teams coach. He is really hitting all the right notes this year, though. 3 games in a row with a blocked kick coming into this one. Didn't get the block. What did they do instead? Oh, ho-hum, just a 73-yard punt return for a touchdown to completely change the course of the game. By far the biggest play tonight, Calvin Austin's touchdown. The special teams are special for the Pittsburgh Steelers right now.
Lest we forget, this game was 9-9 at the half. I know I never really felt like they were going to lose this game, but it was up for grabs in the third quarter, and that was the one spot in the game when the offense sputtered a bit too, was the first couple of drives of the second half. And Austin takes it the distance. It's the first punt return touchdown for the Steelers in 5 years since Deontay Johnson did it in 2019. So it's not like that's an everyday occurrence either. And they've gotten the blocks like you mentioned, but not on the return side have they done something huge. We all know kickoff returns are going to be difficult to make anything happen these days with the new rules. So punt returns where you can still make some hay, everything's still the same as it always was. And that's where Austin shows off that track star speed that he has. And you were right earlier. We haven't talked enough about Calvin Austin. I'm not quite sure he actually got the blocks early. He more outran guys, and we nearly had a couple of blocks in the back there, but the Steelers showed some restraint. I thought they were going to see a running into or a roughing the kicker. The referee and the officials let that one go too. So on a night of many flags, there was a flag on that play, but it was actually against the Giants, and the Steelers declined it. But thank goodness for that, because of the lightning bolt that was Calvin Austin. So he really showed up and showed out for a national audience too.
I think, he's been open all year. They just haven't been able to get him the ball. And he is hard to see out there at times. Let's be honest. He's 5'8". Like, it's not easy to find. But the number of times where I've sat down and watched the tape and you just see little 19 with this one hand in the air going like this, and they're just not getting it to him. Those plays have been there all year. I think it's great. They finally connected on one tonight. There was another one earlier. He could have had a touchdown on that one as well. I think he can be a bigger part of the passing game. He certainly has breakaway speed. And they're not, like that. I think the overall theme for the offense is there's so much more to go, but all the credit in the world to Danny Smith and this defense, and I'm sorry, the special teams, because they've been a huge part of this team's 6-2 record so far. Let's go a little big picture here. Bye weeks times out great. They need to win a momentum of a win versus Washington, need to beat a team we're not expected to beat in order to make up for the Dallas and Colts games. I don't know about you, but I'm expecting them to beat Washington. Hail Mary pass notwithstanding, needing a Hail Mary to beat the Chicago Bears at home does not strike fear in my heart. I don't know about you, Matt. I think Jaden Daniels is a dynamic young player. I'm still expecting the Steelers to take care of business in D.C. in 2 weeks, but it does feel like this is a good time for the bye, not just coming off a win and 10 days of good feelings, but they've got a lot of injured guys that are going to come back. I mean, they had 5 guys ruled out for this week that were fairly close to playing. Nick Herbig, Zach Frazier, Cordero Patterson, Dylan Cook, Tyler Matakevich, and they've got another 5 or 6 that aren't that far away themselves. Cole Holcomb's been working his way back. Logan Lee, Ben Skoranek. I feel like every time I do this, I'm missing one because there's just so many of them. They had enough for like a 7-on-7 game in the practice on the third practice field this last couple of weeks. They're getting healthy at a really good time, and they're going to need the reinforcements for the stretch run. As you said, there's going to be more injuries coming.
Right, and this second half, if you will, it's not really the second half. It's a little more than that, but it's division games and it's tough games. And I will dispute what you said about Washington. I've watched them a few times this year, and I think that's going to be a tough one. I really do on the road. But again, it's very gettable as well, and as they say, any given Sunday. So that's one you circle, and then you dig right into the AFC North from there. Baltimore, Cleveland, Cincinnati, Cleveland again. Then you got the Eagles on the road. Remember, the Chiefs are lurking on Christmas Day. So there's a lot here down the stretch that will challenge the Steelers. So honestly, thank goodness they took care of business the last 3 games. That's what they needed to do against a couple of staggering New York teams and at the Raiders, a de facto home game at Allegiant Stadium. So they did what they were supposed to do there after the heartbreaking loss to Dallas. They're in a good spot, not a great spot, but the Ravens blow a game at Cleveland. Things are starting to fall their way here.
I mean, they got sole first possession of first place in the North. They will have it, and I think they're getting healthy. This is ahead of where I thought they'd be at this time of this season. They played a lot of tough road games in terms of the amount of travel they've done so far. This is a difficult schedule, but they've gotten through the early part of it in about as good a shape as I think could have been expected. And I think they've set themselves up pretty nicely to make a run here.
They are they're in pole position in the division, right? And they still have some climbing to do in the conference if they really want to put themselves in a great spot. But for a while, a little worried about just making the postseason. And here they are with 6 wins in 8 games. It's not certainly not clinched at this point, but it'll be harder to miss it than it will be to make it now. And so now it's about building, and you'll hear a lot of talk, I'm sure, from the locker room in coming days and weeks about building confidence and stacking the results now. I feel like it's Russell Wilson's team on the offensive side too, so that gives them some stability, barring an injury there. And of course, that's no guarantee, but having the backing of a Justin Fields as well makes you feel a little bit better about that. There's not going to be a huge drop-off, but I confess I'm as excited about the Steelers' prospects as I have been in several years, going back to probably before the pandemic, just because of the defense remains a difference maker. And in particular, a couple of guys that we all know their names, and the offense appears to have a cool hand at the switch here. So, assuming that Wilson can stay on the field, I love to see what he's going to be able to build up, and he's proven some people wrong already in the first 2 games of his Steelers tenure.
Yeah, I think the question for the Steelers team all year has been whether or not they can win a game in the playoffs. I think you look at the Steelers team and you say, can they go to Kansas City? Can they go to Buffalo in January and win a playoff game? And I don't know if I like their chances of that still, but I tell you what I like their chances a lot better of, not having to.
Yep.
About winning. Hey, go take advantage of some other teams' mistakes, win the division, get yourself a home playoff game. I think that the chances of that happening exponentially more likely after what we've seen in the first half of this season. Matt, thank you so much for joining me again. This was a lot more fun than the last time you did it, both in terms of our experience and I believe the fans' experience a little bit earlier, and a nice W. Give everybody a plug for what you got working, and thanks for joining us.
Yeah, absolutely. Actually, in the network, if you will, I've been doing some Pittsburgh Penguins post games. I'll be doing one tomorrow on the Pittsburgh Hockey Now YouTube channel, and big game against the Wild tomorrow. Marc-Andre Fleury comes to town one more time. So talking some hockey in addition to the football, and you can follow me on social media at Matt Gajtka, MattGajtka. Alan retweeted me a couple of times here from the Steelers Now account and his accounts. You can find me via that. So always tweeting about the Steelers and the Penguins this time of year. It's a great time of year. We got some crossover, and always something to chat about. Thank you for having me. When the bright lights are on, I love to stay up late and certainly shoot the bull with you and everyone here. So thank you for your comments as well, everyone who watched.
Yeah, I really appreciate you guys staying up late with us to jump in. And, of course, you can find me at @Saunders_PGH on X, Instagram, and TikTok. PGH Steelers Now Sites account. Make sure to hop over there. I'll have all the coverage here from Pittsburgh, myself, Brendan Howe, Derek Bell in the building tonight as well. And, the whole team there. And then, of course, here on the YouTube channel, like, subscribe, hit that bell for notifications. More from me and Smitty tomorrow as the Steelers begin their bye week, their victory bye week on a Tuesday. And, of course, we'll have lots and lots of Steelers content. Also, make sure if you missed it to check me and Smitty's episode of Steelers Afternoon Drive from today when we reviewed the Danger Rush sandwich from Permanis. That one will be good to check out the whole rest of the week. Thank you, Gateway Clipper from Pittsburgh. Signing off from another Steelers Now postgame. Thanks for listening. Thanks for watching. Until next time, enjoy.